Hi, everybody. Hey, it's Mr. Forrest here again. Hey, this is your week 2 overview, okay? And so I want to kind of give you an idea of what you're going to be doing this week. And I'm going to try to do this each week. And I have some videos that I did from last semester and then some from this semester because I'm always looking for ways to kind of maybe update and improve them, whatever. So let me kind of work from here. So I'm going to start off by sharing my screen, okay? And here we go. Okay, so when you log into my Lab, excuse me, back up, sorry. When you log into Canvas, okay, you're going to get to this home page. Eventually, I'm going to reset the home page to go to your modules, okay? So you're going to go through the My Lab, okay? I keep saying that. You're going to go through Canvas, you can see the home page, and you're going to click on modules. Then from modules, what are you going to do? Okay, do that here a second. You're going to go down to week 2. Okay, so you've got your MyT Lab, you set up an account in the class, you got it paid for. Fantastic. You're ready to rock and roll if you haven't already. You're watching this video because you clicked on this overview. Okay, you click on the chapter 1 technology in action book. So if I click on this, it's going to take me right directly to Pearson Plus chapter 1. Okay, now let me make sure. I'm going to reshare my screen just to make sure it really is showing up. Okay. If you're not logged in, then you'll have to then log in, and then it'll take you eventually to the chapter 1. So log in where? In your MyT Lab account, okay? That means that when you set up your MyT Lab account, you're going to have a username and password for MyIT Lab, okay? So this gets you to the e-link for the book, okay, that you paid for, okay, with the simulation, MyIT Lab, My Lab IT, whichever, okay? And then you can start reading the chapters that are going on here in the book, okay? Does that make sense a bit? And again, I mentioned in an earlier, the welcome video, that you can go over here to the table of contents and you can go see all the other chapters that are there. But this is going to take you right to chapter 1. So you can start reading through the chapter 1. Okay. I'm going to come back over here and come back to where we're at. So how do we get here? Because in week 2, we said, hey, I'm ready to read the ebook. So you go through and you read the ebook for chapter 1. Fantastic. Okay. You want to, if you haven't read the book yet, you want to do just a quick overview, then play the audio PowerPoint. Okay, so if I click on the audio PowerPoint and I get this screen here, again, I want to make sure that it's actually showing it here, and then I could hit play. Welcome to Technology and it's going to then go through about 30 slides, usually, somewhere in that neighborhood. Again, it does not replace your reading the chapters, but it gives you an idea of what's the chapter all about. Okay, cool. So we come back over here in the Canvas. Again, audio PowerPoint. So I maybe the better solution is watch the audio PowerPoint, then read the chapter. But I think if you read the chapter first and then use the audio PowerPoint as kind of like, oh, yeah, that was my takeaway. There might be things that are explained in the audio PowerPoint that you didn't quite digest as well when you read the book. So that happens. So I'm going to give you both. Then there's the chapter study guide. So if you click on this, right? And you can download this file. Remember, it's a Word document. And again, it's just the questions, but no answers. Your job is to go find the answers. And again, work with a buddy, work with a friend, work with the tutors, work with whomever you want. I'm just not going to give you the answers because I'm going to be using these questions in the chapter quizzes and eventually the final. Okay, so you can ask everybody pretty much but me. So this one has, if we get all the way down to the end here, here we come all the way down here. A total of 57 questions, and you notice bunch of 31 multiple choice, and then the rest of them are true false. Okay, and again, some of those are critical thinking questions type things, but that's because it's a Word document. You can go through and highlight. Again, you could download this file. It's a word processing document, and then mark it all up that you want, and that's a study tool that you'll want to do to look at it before you take a chapter quiz or eventually the finals when you have 13 chapter study guides already filled out. Okay. All right, cool. So there's that one. Let me come back here. Okay, so that's the study guide, right? And then finally, what else do you have to do in week 2? You have to go into the, remember, heads and tails of the course, whatever. You have to go log into my T-Lab and do the Windows training and assessment. So when I click over here for the training and the assessment, I have to then log into my IT Lab. And when I log into my IT Lab, you'll see a slightly different layout. And you'll see it's kind of broken down to say, oh, Windows training, Windows assessment, and you go launch that. How does that work? Okay, we come back over here. is because you watched this video right here on what a training or assessment works like, okay? So that's pretty much it. This is your homework for the week. If you don't do this, you're absent because I don't have any records of these things. I have a record of this, okay? So you need to make sure you do your training, the assessments, whatever, so that I have credit for you to actually participate during that week, okay? Read the chapters, do heads, tails, right, kind of thing. Got it, okay. So by the way, just real quick, what's in chapter 1? So I'm gonna go, let me go back and reshare my screen, okay? Here's kind of an overview for that, okay? So if I bring this back over here, again, I'm dealing with Zoom sometimes. Students don't always, you guys don't always get this part, but you know, there we go. So what are some of the learning objectives in chapter 1? You're going to learn about various technology tools. What are some of the global issues and how is technology changing our lives? Oh my gosh, okay. You know, how it impacts us, okay. It's a general literacy, you know. It's going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and you know, the impact and the goals and what we're seeing. We're just in the infancy with AI. Anyway, this is a concepts class. It's not meant to make you an expert in any of the topics or whatever, but to start to familiarize yourself with the concepts of this technology, okay? Computers are basically input, process, output, storage, right? We have these programs, we have simulation softwares, we have system software, we have application software. What are some ethical issues? Okay. What are some of the, you know, development that could affect it? Okay. How is technology going to affect the ethical issues? Remember I talked about saying, hey, you know, don't look at your notes when you take the test. You know, now, am I looking behind your back to see if you're actually doing it? No, that becomes an ethical thing for you. If I wanted to control that, then I would do like a math or, you know, a class or whatever, or some of the science classes where I would require you to install a monitoring software on your computer so that when you're taking the test, I know if your eyes are looking down at notes. I would know whether or not you opened up additional websites or other additional files or things like that. So we're a bit on the honor side, so ethical implications of some of this stuff is also important. Anyway, not trying to make it over, but my point is that you now have a little bit of an idea of just from here, just of the objectives for chapter 1, okay? So let me come back to my share. Bingo, and let me get this out of the way. So what is here in chapter 1, okay? So in chapter 1, okay, we're coming back to this part here. You went to the ebook, you read chapter 1. You watched the audio PowerPoint, right, for the what is the flavoring for chapter 1. You worked on the study guides and found the answers. You then worked on the training and the assessments that are due. You have to hit submit on the assessment in particular before Saturday, 9 p.m. Again, if you never hit submit, okay, or save and submit, whatever and stuff, you may end up with 0 points, okay? And in which case you get 0 points and you're absent for the week, okay? So you want to make sure that you're actually saving and submitting before the deadlines so there's a record of your participating, okay? And then that's it for week 2. I look at week 3, we just have a chapter quiz. Remember, exam weeks, no homework. Anyway, I hope that helps. This was meant to be a shorter little video, okay? And so it gives you an idea of what's to happen in the days to come, okay? So on that note, you guys have a great one, and we'll see you in the next video.